Alright, welcome to this tutorial about the second project, Perspective, within the Arts 105 course. What we're going to be looking at here is how we can do 2-point perspective for that project, and I've already gathered my resources, so if you're looking at the project description, you should see that you should have already taken some photos of just a basic structure. It doesn't have to be anything complex, but based off of your level of understanding and perspective, you can always challenge yourself further. And then you're going to already have your 18 by 24 drawing paper set up with the 3-inch borders around the entire surface. So you really have about a 12 by 18 surface to draw in. You will need like your ruler, your yardstick, or T-square. But the mode of this project is for you in the very beginning. We're just going to be drawing with a pencil. We're going to be drawn very lightly because a lot of these lines that we're going to create are going to be erased or need to be removed. So I put that out there. Draw very lightly. Don't press too hard into the paper. Just make a lot of light lines. From there, we'll eventually end up inking this entire surface. Keep in mind that if you wanted to add color to this, you totally can. You can do that through the ink itself, or maybe you want to add watercolor, something like that. Just know that you'll want to watercolor first and then ink, so that way you don't the ink doesn't bleed or run. So anyway, with that, we're going to just kind of get started. There's 2 other tutorial videos posted on the Moodle page, and from that you should be able to already understand either 1-point or 2-point perspective drawing in some capacity. So this should be a little bit of a recap, but directed specifically towards the project. Like all perspective, what you really need to do is to always start by drawing your horizon line. So I'm just going to go in here and just pick. Now, if you have already created your photos and then they got them down to what you wanted, what you need to really be doing is kind of drawing on the photo. So over here, I'm really thinking about sort of this corner that's sticking out to me the most. Okay, I'm going to draw my horizon line. I'm going to put in my 2 vanishing points. You can put these anywhere. Please don't worry about being specific. That's always one of the biggest problems starting this is people say, well, where is the horizon line? I don't see it. Don't worry about it. Just go ahead and put one in there. It really doesn't matter because we're going to be altering this thing so much. The photo is there for a reference, but the drawing is going to be drawn to the rules of perspective based off that photo. So I'll talk about that here in just a second. So I'm going to switch up my colors just so we can see. So I want to start with that dominant corner. I have my horizon line. I have 2 vanishing points. I know this is a 2-point perspective drawing because I can see 2 sides of the house. If I can only see one side of the house, that's a 1-point perspective. I noticed the corner of the house is more on the right side of the page. So I'm just going to take it, do this real quick. Come on. Bear with me right now. My pen tool is not wanting to be very helpful. Okay, so we got the line in there. Now we know that all lines have 2 points, so I'm just kind of pointing those out that we have 2 points here. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to connect it back to the vanishing point. From the top, that connect it back to the vanishing point. Now your lines are going to be a lot straighter than mine. Connect it to the vanishing point. Connect it to the vanishing point. Okay. Now anywhere in here, I can't measure anymore, right? We're drawn to the rules of perspective. So I know that somewhere in here is going to be the end of the house. I'm going to take my ruler, draw that in. Maybe we say right over here, chop that off. Okay. Now at this time, if you wanted to, you could come back in here and start to, get rid of some of these lines. I'm not too worried about it, but just for the sake of distraction, I'm going to get rid of some of these because I know I won't need them as much. Okay, so there's that basic house right there. Okay. Now from there, right, the next thing that we notice is missing really is the roof. I know that if I did that, if I draw an X from corner to corner, right, that gives me dead center. And I can take my ruler and bring that up. And wherever I feel like the peak of the roof should be, I'm going to connect it back to the house. Okay. Now this point up here, let me change the color just so I kind of emphasize it. This point up here, right? Sometimes with your ruler, you can't, it won't allow you to take it completely back to the vanishing point. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. If you can, go ahead and do that. If you can't, that's okay. You're drawing to the rules of perspective, not to the rules of nature. Even though you may feel like you want to see that side, you may not be able to get that. So I should be able to get just a little bit in here. Now this angle right here, right, that's not a receding line. It's just a diagonal. And I use that over here, the same diagonal. Okay. So now what I have, and do forgive me for my lines not being perfectly straight like yours will be. But now I have that roof. Okay. Basic structure. From there I can look and say, okay, I see that the right side over here will have 3 windows. And you start, doing a line, taking it back to the vanishing point, taking it back to the vanishing point, and then chopping it off, right? Over here there's a really big window, right? Take that line, take it to the vanishing point, take it to the vanishing point, and then chop it off somewhere, okay? Notice that I'm not worried about the porch or anything else right now. Basic structure, okay? If I wanted to add that porch on there, one of the best things to do is I kind of have to reverse engineer it, but one thing that I can do is that front porch is still basically a cube, right? Just like the cube that we drew here, we want to now figure out how to draw a cube here. Well, I do know that there should be attached in the house, just like I see over here. I can imagine a line right there, okay? And that point from the vanishing point can come out. Now maybe I want it to go to here, so I go out. Now I've drawn this side and the back side, okay? This new point, I can come in. That gives me sort of the structure. I know that there's another vertical in here for the pole. I know that there's another vertical over here for the pole, okay? And however high I want this, maybe I want it there. I can look at this and say, okay, it needs to go to that vanishing point. If this roof is at its own angle, that is not a receding line, then we don't worry about it. I know that right here, right, that's a receding line that should go to the vanishing point. Excuse me, that was pretty bad. Right here, should have a line that goes to the receding. Okay, and then this one should as well, really. Okay, I have that porch, and now if I wanted to, I could connect it to the house. And I can fill this stuff out later. Okay, so the idea in these drawings is just to get basics. We don't need to go a whole heck of a lot of details, just some basic alignment. So the doors would be important, the windows would be important. I wouldn't worry right now about the texture of the roof or the siding or anything like that yet, because what's going to happen is that that was my first picture I selected. Now I'm going to go to my next picture. Okay, let's say I want this one for number 2. Okay, so now I have this whole new picture, right, with a whole new view. Now I still know that it's a 2-point perspective drawing because I can see that corner and that side of the house. Okay, I know that it's tilting that way. Now this is where you as the artist get to have a lot of fun. Right? The idea of this project is to morph and kind of have many layers going on. They do not have to attach. They do not have to make sense. They don't need to be anything that we completely recognize. And for that, you can look at the student examples to see how students have approached this. Really just sort of free yourself and say, okay, I'm just going to use this as an example. And this side's pretty big, so let's just go ahead. Right, and over here, excuse me, let's start by making that corner, right? And then do the same thing where I know it connects back to the vanishing point. Even though I really can't see it much in this photo, I know it connects back to the vanishing point, back to the vanishing point, to the vanishing point, to the vanishing point. And you can see I'm drawing over all the stuff that I'm doing. That's okay, because some of this stuff I want to show, some of it doesn't. I just need the basic layout. I'll figure it out later. Now from there, I'm going to chop it off. And maybe, because I can see how this is running in, maybe I want to go ahead and use this line. I chop it off, and I'll show you that here in a second later why I chose that. Now we do that X method on the side, right? We find exactly dead center where this is, okay? And now when I bring that up, I have the roof. I know that I can now take the roof back to the vanishing point, and I need that same angle right over there. Okay, so now I have this sort of house running into itself. From here, I may say, okay, yeah, I still like the porch. Okay, well, we know how to do the porch, and you can add that in, right? But for the sake of time and kind of understanding, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to jump to the last of the photos. Now, it took about 7, but these are the ones that I ended up choosing that I liked. So now I have a completely different view once again. And from there, compositionally, I'm going to say, well, how do I work this in? How do I get this last one to come in? It's a completely different sort of view. Well, maybe what I do is I know it's a 2-point perspective drawing still, using everything the same. And what I'm going to do is maybe picture coming in that corner, and that's that corner right there, right? We're always using that dominant corner, the one that sticks out to us. And I connect it to the vanishing point, connect to the vanishing point, connect to the vanishing point, connect to the vanishing point, right? I go ahead and think about chopping it off. Somewhere over here, maybe I'll use this side now as the chopping off point, and I'm going to change the color just so you can see that X method once again. Corner to corner, corner to corner. That gives you dead center, true dead center, because you can't measure this stuff in perspective. And from there we go straight up. That'll give us the peak of the roof. That's where the peak of the roof should be. Get straight up, dead center. Pretty stereotypical where they'd put the peak of the roof. Change back here. So I have that, and from there I can connect the house, connect to the house. Okay. And what I like here, this point this time, I can't take back. You will not see the top of the roof. Now you may feel like you want to see it, but really you can't. Now at this point, and I'm going to do this, right, I'm going to just start darkening some of these lines. I like how some lines are meeting each other, others aren't. And that's sort of the beginning of the optical illusion that's going to happen with these things. And that you're going to find that it really twists and turns, creating like a whole new architecture to the buildings that you're going off of. I really like this. Looks like it's coming out, but then we hit that wall. We have this corner right here. We have that one right in there. So now I have kind of this structure that if I wanted to come back into, all right, I'm going to erase some of this stuff just to give you a better impression of what we see. Because the next sort of thing that we're going to be dealing with is some of our details. Just cleaning up a lot of these receding lines that we don't like. At this point, if I say, yeah, you know what, I don't need this one anymore because I'm not going to really see that. Maybe I kind of even like the idea that I can see the horizon back there still. Even though technically I shouldn't be able to. Doesn't matter. It's going to be sort of a surrealistic looking house. You know, dreamlike. It can't exist in real life. but it'll exist here for us. Okay. Now look, we have this really interesting structure. Back. And now I can come back and really start looking at some of those details and say, okay, like the house here, the roof, the tin on the roof, right? If I go back and reference some of those, all of that, I can now start to add in. All right, but now I know I don't need to do the whole thing because I don't want to show the whole roof there. The roof is the same here. I have those diagonals already drawn. I know what they are. They don't need to go to the vanishing point because they're not receding lines. So you can take more of your time to draw these. I'm trying to do them dark so you can see them all. But you can see how I'm kind of like picking and choosing where I want things to be, right? This is now coming down to how I see the composition, right? And that's what I want you to really figure out. What is it that you like about this composition that you want to highlight? Get rid of that thing there. And so now it's a matter, and this is where most of the work will come in, is sort of like seeing the details, right? We know that there's a beam. It's going to be here, so I'm going to add all those sides. I do apologize, I can't show you the best details on this. I know that there was a door in here, so I take that, draw it to the vanishing point, drop it off. I'd spend some time getting the window correct. Get that window in there. Then I take this window, draw it, get its frame, right? If it's got trim, put that in there. Maybe it has a center. Maybe you even see some curtains, right? All that sort of stuff you can start to do the details with. Okay, this side we knew you don't have to follow everything directly. We knew that there were 3 windows here, but we don't have to do all 3. If you want to, you can. But then it also had that siding, right? And that siding, the easiest way to do this, let me change the color real quick just to show you again, is that if I come along here where I know my siding is going to be, I could take a ruler and measure off the same increment of measure. Let's say it's a 1/2 inch the whole way. Now I can come back in and at each one of these points take them to the vanishing point. Take it to the vanishing point, take it, and that'll make really nice clean rows for you that look very like machine made. This technique you'll use for everything from bricks to even if you wanted to do like some cobblestone look. But now as I start to add this in here really roughly, right, I start to get that wooden side. Over here I may choose not to do some of it, sort of leave it open, and then once again do the shingle side, make my marks along this point. And then take it all back to the vanishing point. Right. In the end, you're going to cover this thing up with so many nice details and textures and stuff from the photos, right? Even if I wanted to come out here naturally and say, oh, I like some of these rocks, the way they're sitting out here. Okay, well, put them in there. You can totally do that, right? There's nothing wrong with you adding these rocks, right? You'll also find that adding value will help, right? If there's things that are getting really busy, well, think of a light source. If my light source is coming from this direction, then maybe over here I take and I do some cross hatching, right? And I start to darken this stuff out, which means that this side can also be darkened out. Okay, you can totally do that. You can choose how you want these things to look, but that'll help us develop the space. I'll even darken this one out just so we can see things better. Okay, so that's the simplest way I can teach you like how to go into this. I of course want you to do this more obsessively with more marks, with more textures. Spend a lot of time. Perspective is tough, so really take your time with it. Draw lightly. You'll finish this in ink, and if you have questions or something, just email me. But no, just follow those steps by starting with the horizon line. So step 1, horizon line. Step 2 is get your vanishing points in there. Then step 3, draw that dominant corner and do that first building. getting some of the details down, and then go to your second picture and do that building however you feel like it's going to click into the space there, and so on and so forth. By the end of it, you may be having grass. You can add grass down in here in several different ways. Maybe you like the tree. You can do a lot of stuff. So that's sort of the quick and skinny of it. I hope to see your results, and you can always email me with images of your progress if you need to.